Hi, welcome to the Wednesday Talk. I'm going to read something that was written by Karen Drucker, whom I'm sure you all know. She's a wonderful songstress, and she wrote this book, and it's called Let Go of the Shore, Stories and Songs That Set the Spirit Free. Chapter 27, and this is a quote by Sherry Carter Scott. Clarity is the state of seeing clearly, seeing things in a new light, like applying Windex to your soul. And this is a story that she wrote. He put the key in the lock of his basement door, turned it, and with a deep breath opened up the door. This friend of mine, this spiritual seeker, this person who was always digging deep into his soul to discover new parts of himself and grow, had confessed to me about the dark place in his life where he just refused to go. His basement. This was his big secret. No one knew about the clutter and that lived in his basement, and no one ever got to see it. That didn't make sense to me. How could someone be so devoted to a spiritual path, yet have clutter and chaos at the root of his physical surroundings? When I first started out as a singer, I had many odd jobs, but one of my favorites was being a professional organizer. It was heaven for me to come into someone's cluttered garage and just a few hours later have it be clean, organized, and looking like a brand new room. My clients would ooh and ah, and I would feel fulfilled, like I had really made a difference in their lives. And I would move on to the next client. A funny thing happened though. I began to notice that about 2 weeks after I had swooped in and cleared everything out for them, it would be back to where it had been, totally disorganized. I finally realized, after many experiences of organizing and reorganizing people, that there was way more to this subject than just organizing the stuff or throwing it away. I began to ask people specifically about their clutter. What was it that they were moving around or throwing away? What were these items and what did they mean to them? That's when I got it. As with so many things in life, clearing the clutter wasn't really about the clutter. It was about the belief underneath all the stuff. We talked about the basements, attics, and garages filled with old books and mystery papers from our past. The closets filled with old clothes. All of these things live on, gathering dust around our psychic soul. Our discussion went a little deeper, going into the beliefs and fears about what it would be like to have space. What was he really letting go of, and what would happen if he released, surrendered, and let go? The main question we kept asking was this: if you let that book, picture, letter go, what will be in its place? It is a challenging spiritual practice to keep uncluttered in this way. From my own life experience, I had a really wonderful example that has profoundly affected me. Close to 9/11, my mother made her transition, and I flew down to San Francisco. I lived in Seattle to pack her things up. Now, my mother was born during the Depression, and she was born in Murray City, Tennessee, tiny, tiny town, and they were very poor in finances. She was the oldest daughter of 9 children, so she took care of them a lot. One of her main goals as she grew up was to get an education, and then as she had children and she moved to San Francisco, she had 4 children, and her goal was to make us feel independent and to give us great educations, which she did. The one thing she never really gave us was telling us that she loved us. Now, we knew she did, but she never really said, "I love you." And it haunted me for my whole life, because without hearing those words, I never really thought she did love me. And that was the fear in myself. It wasn't her. So when I went down to pack her up, because it was 9/11, none of my siblings could come and help me. And she had a lot of metaphysical books, and I packed some of them in a few boxes and put them in her car and drove it back to Seattle, where I put them in my basement for 11 years. And then I decided to move to LA, and I packed them up, put them in the van. I had never looked through them, and brought them down to LA, where they sat in my garage for about another 4 years. And one day, the church I go to was having a book sale, and I thought, okay, I'm going to start trying to let go. I'm going to clear out my space so I can bring in new, nourishing things. And I picked out a few books, brought them to the book sale, and that was that. Sometime later, about a year later, or less than a year later, I was doing a meditation at my church, and a woman walked up to me and she said, "Is this yours? Is this you, Mickey Gillette?" And I went, "Yes." And she handed me a card that was still closed, and it had my name on it, and it had my address on it, and it was in my mother's handwriting. And I looked at it, and I just wanted to cry because I missed my mother so much. And there she was, her handwriting. And I opened the card, and it said, "Dear Mickey, I love you so much. Love, Mom." And all these years of waiting for it, and it came back to me because I decided to clear out my space, to leave room for love to come in. And it did. And my whole life changed at that moment because I had said to God, I just want to know that my mother loves me. And I got my answer. And for that, I am blessed. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Amen.